All right, we should be set.
We're all set. We're good to go.
Awesome.
We're pretty much on time, so I'll just thank you all to the students for coming out. So I'm just going to kick things off. So welcome tonight. My close friend Alex, also known as Vansilli, is in the house. We met, I want to say, gosh, like 4 or 5 years ago, while he was doing a play-by-play shoutcasting for a CS:GO tournament, and it was with World Gaming, and I was, of course, hosting. He's known for having strong voice, a clear delivery, being an all-around awesome person. You can find him on Loosely Scripted, Valoranting, ESPN Esports, ESEA Open, Mobility Gaming, Electronic Sports World Cup, all the official R6 Ubisoft Canadian tournaments, the Trovo Challenge for Valorant, and even more places. His journey started out with Quake 3, Tribes 1, and Return of Castle Wolfenstein, and he is now here today to impart sage advice to you, Hawks. So, Alex, huge welcome. How's it going tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Also, thank you to all the students as well as Jackie just mentioned. You guys are all in midterms, so thank you for taking the time this evening to hang out with me, and hopefully I could give you guys some good advices, or at least give you guys my experiences that you could take some positive notes or negative notes, so that you could watch out for things you could watch out for once you get into esports. Man, that was probably the best intro I've ever gotten in a long time. Go ahead.
Hey, cause I'm not just a friend, I am a fan. Okay, I've followed the journey. But speaking about the journey, so let's take it back all the way to 2002, and
Mhm.
you're playing Quake 3,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden, like, we can find you pretty much everywhere. First-person shooters are important. So, like, walk us through kind of how you got started on this path.
Awesome. Okay. So Quake 3, man, that's a long way back. So that's 1999. I started actually online gaming, I think in like 2001, 2002 with Quake 2. So Quake 3, there was basically a mod called Urban Terror, which is very similar to what Counter-Strike is now, back in 2003. And back then, there was also this application called Winamp. Winamp, what it was is you would it was unfortunately illegal for us back then, but we were downloading our music. And a way to play our music without playing Spotify and stuff like that too, we had to download MP3s and find a place to play them. So we played it on Winamp. And Winamp had this plugin called Shoutcast, which basically allowed for you to tune into broadcasting matches or broadcasted matches or any live streams through audio only. So as if you're actually listening to AM radio. So I had a buddy of mine, a clanmate of mine from Urban Terror and Quake 3, that was part of this organization, and we're all doing it for free. So fast forward a few months, I tried out for the organization called the Team Sportscast Network back in 2002, 2003. And then I finally got accepted after like 8 months and like 26 demos, because I had potential, not because I was good yet. Actually, I listened back to those casts. I was pretty terrible.
The
But
potential's there, though. You gotta
exactly,
believe.
exactly. If you got potential and they give you that opportunity to get the potential, you keep on going, right? So started with that, and that's where the term shoutcasting came from. Did a lot of audio broadcasting then, and then when video came out in like 2006, we were probably one of the first, and then Justin TV came out, and Justin TV eventually became Twitch.tv, and with
Hmm.
Twitch.tv, everything just blew up within esports. So I was on and off the scene in terms of broadcasting, doing my main broadcasting games being Counter-Strike 1.5 and 1.6, and then a plethora of games, but Counter-Strike being the main one. And today now is Valorant since its inception, actually, for Valorant.
Yeah, that's like amazing. Not only did you impact, such a huge history, but I really like how you said, it took you, it's not one and done. It took you 26 demos to to make it there. And
Yeah.
that's something I'm gonna razz the students for a second if I can. But you need that resilience. The first no doesn't mean the career is over. It doesn't mean like the fire's extinguished. You gotta bounce back from it. So I really like, you kept through. It's 2002. People don't know what it was like. I don't even know if half of y'all were born yet, and it was rough. Like, people don't know the Winamp days were rough, which is
Yeah,
why I specifically said shoutcasting for you instead of commentator, because we
exactly.
got we got an OG in the house. So I wanted to kind of shift into talking about casting. I mean, there's the stuff everyone knows, color, play by play, depending on the speed of the game, you can move from one thing to another. But I think you actually have some deeper knowledge that you can impact us that is kind of more focused on real things you need to know. Like the kids themselves can look up color and play by play, but what are some things that you really want to focus on if you're starting out?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I would recommend if you guys want to get into broadcasting and are new into a game as well, right? So for example, a new game comes out next year and there's an esports title for it, and you're not really sure how the game is played because nobody's really played it before. So I think a good way to start is thinking about doing it from play-by-play. Because play-by-play is literally mostly calling the action of what you see on the screen, and you don't have to be too analytical with it to start. And once you actually start casting a lot of games and you start seeing how the strategies are being played and stuff like that too, that's where you kind of start building your kind of like experience to become an analyst or a color commentator later on. But I think when it comes down to casting as well, it's not. I'll take a few steps back because we got to talk about ourselves too as a caster. So I think what's really important is cadence and tempo, the voice. So what I mean by that is, for example, so I'm mainly with tactical FPS shooters, right? So Counter-Strike and Valorant. So there's always a freeze time to buy your weapons. There's always a certain time that starts at the beginning of the round to understand where the pieces are being placed onto the map for the team. So you kind of have to like storytell and have an analysis of what you think is going to happen first. And then once the action starts, you could start changing to talking from story mode to hyping it up a bit to talking a little bit faster to even raising your voice. But there's still some things you have to look out for. So for example, not casting off a kill feed. So every time the top right comes up and you're saying this guy kills this guy kills this, probably not a thing that you want to look into because sometimes you could call out a kill that doesn't really pop up onto the screen, right? You really want to describe what the audience is watching. And also, when you want to be a hype play, I don't think it's always about screaming because sometimes you have to, or every single time, you have to understand a little bit what's the situation and where are we into the storyline. So for
Yes.
so for example, say Counter-Strike, its first one is 16, right? So it's like let's say 8-3 for you right now on the CT side. And then suddenly it's you killing an eco or going for eco frags, and the guy has 3 kills. It's not necessarily high play. It's M4 versus pistols. The CTs have a huge lead right now, so like the impact of that round is not that important. So if you want to add a little bit more into your hype or a little bit more into that storyline overall, until you get to that round number 16, then you kind of know after when you want to start bringing up your cadence or bringing up your voice. And when I'm talking about bringing up the voice too, is really talking through your diaphragm and not really trying to scream out. So there's a lot of practice that you could do in terms of like being able to talk with your gut and project your voice through your gut. And then that would definitely help in terms of building your voice as well.
Yeah, and one thing I really appreciate about your casting in particular is that I want the students to know that when you're speaking in your casting voice, the rate that people can consume information is way more expanded. So you can't have a slow conversation. So if you listen eventually in any tournament, it's like a rapid fire, but you're still getting all the information in a way that's still palatable. So it's almost like saying, hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Here we go into this. And you feel like you're doing those run-on sentences your teachers told you not to do. But in casting, it's so important. I always feel you are so good at controlling the pacing and the tone, and we always get all the information. Like I can sit and truly understand what's happening, having relatively no experience in a lot of shooters.
Yeah, actually, to add on to that too, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not good as well, right? Because my weakness actually is sometimes I do too many of those run-on sentences due to the fact that when I used to shoutcast back in 2003, 2006, before we actually had video, when you actually listen to hockey on AM radio, they're very, very detailed. So I had to be very detailed too because people didn't have a video feed in front. So when it comes down to video coming out, you don't have to be as detailed, but you could definitely point out the most important aspects that adds to the hype, to the color of what the person is seeing, especially if you're a play-by-play caster. But if not, something that I need to work on my end is actually not have to describe as much as as much as I need to. For example, like how many bullets he has left in the chamber. You could say he's low instead of 9 bullets. I know he has 9 bullets. So there's your vocabulary that you could work on, and some things that you could change. And I think somebody that's trying to start off in casting, one of the biggest advices that I've had from Paul Red-Eyed Challoner back then was to improve my vocabulary. What I could do is take a couple of sticky notes and then place them around my monitor. So, for example, I'll try to find a synonym to the word of a kill. So I'll have words across. So like a trade, a frag, obliterated, deleted, a bunch of words, and you put them down across your screen so that whenever it comes to the right moment or a hype play, you can kind of find like the nice word that could describe it a little bit, and you can interchange those until you have more of like a casting feel and you feel a little bit more comfortable in terms of your style. So that could definitely.
Totally.
Well, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself, and so many people are guilty of it in FGC casting as well. It's just like, watch your ankles, watch your ankles, watch your feet. Like, and it's like, you know what? Maybe we could just call it a low.
No, that's it. That's it.
It just, yeah, I can totally see the repetition. Sometimes it gets brutal, but our job is hard. Synthesizing the information, keeping it interesting, paying attention to your partner. And I mean, what actually made me love CS:GO so much was talking to you and all the unique calls. I remember I remember one of my first questions was just like, well, what's pizza? And you're just like, pizza's next to tree. Pizza's next to tree. And I'm like, wait, what's tree?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's another thing that adds a lot to a debate. I don't know if you guys are following a lot into the Rainbow Six as well, but there's been a debate recently, I think last week, about how the community were pointing out how casters kind of like, oh, they're not even at a pro level, and why are they casting? Why should we respect casters that are not at a pro level? And I think there's a good difference between casting at a pro level and just being a good caster as well, because a lot of the pro players right now don't really have the skill set to be a play-by-play commentator either, but they could be great analysts, right? In terms of like talking about the scene, talking about the storylines, what was good in a play, and recapping it is great to have a pro player. But when it comes down to wanting to be a caster, you don't necessarily have to be at the top to be, in terms of the skill level, to be a good caster. But I still think it's very, very important to play it, because you still have to learn the fundamentals. So, for example, with Valorant, I spent a lot of time playing a lot of the agents, and I still haven't played all of them yet. So, for example, like a Sova, I haven't mastered yet. A Jet, I haven't mastered yet. And I think the more you play these agents, you kind of know how the abilities work. You know how to call the abilities too, just like Overwatch, for example. But I think it also helps you when you're actually starting to broadcast a game. If you're watching it from a pro player's perspective, you kind of understand, okay, I know the basics of how I could do this certain play, but he brings it to a whole different level, and you're trying to figure out why. And that could actually help into your analysis into a play. It's like, oh, I actually like this play. It's in terms of why he did it differently and why it succeeded, or why it didn't succeed if he actually failed into the play. So I think that helps a little bit too when you want to start things off as a caster to play the game. But after you know the basics, I think the more you cast games and the more you watch demos and the more you watch events, then you could kind of understand how, or Wardell is always going to play, how Gen G is always going to be meticulous and very strat oriented, and know it's going to be at a certain time when they're going to execute. And then basically when you're spending a week broadcasting games every single day, then that's plenty of hours as if you're putting into playing a game as well, right? So you could still develop that knowledge and that experience from being a caster and casting more, but still play a bit of the basics.
Yeah, and it's called passive learning, and it's not like pro players do not do it. They're rewatching their VODs, they're taking time to look at other tournaments. And I mean, to say someone is not a pro and is getting into the casting space, it just always felt like such a jealous cop-out to me from spectators, where they're just looking for ways to hate you. And
that's always around.
Ugh. It's so gross dealing with, I guess, the haters, but it is unfortunately such a reality of Twitch,
Mhm.
and
I,
it almost can't get moderated.
I think just online in general. I think as soon as we're able to, voice our opinions through Twitter, through Twitch chat and stuff like that too, there's always going to be toxicity. So you definitely do have to have some sort of a thick skin. But my biggest tips in terms of those is whenever you guys are casting, don't look at chat. I think looking at chat, one thing, even if you have the thickest skin ever, looking at chat actually throws away from your casting. It just literally happened to me last weekend when I was casting a Renegades Invitational. Was Saturday, I was doing a best out of 3, and I was reading chat at the same time on my other screen. But since I was more like an analytical caster to my co-caster that was doing more play-by-play, if I'm looking at a screen for 5-10 seconds, I'm missing everything that's happening on the minimap, where it hindered my actual analysis for that round and even for the game. Because, for example, even somebody said in the chat, like, yo, this caster is saying the a lot, or the. So while I'm casting, in my head, I'm trying to figure out how do I change a word different to the, and you can't change a different word to the. So it just
No.
it was always in the back of my mind, and it didn't turn out to be a good broadcast. But then I decided to close chat for the next day, and I think it was probably one of the best grand finals that I've casted with Bach as well. So I think that is definitely going to help too. If I
Yeah,
could,
I don't roll around in mud. Oh, sorry, I cut you off. Go for it.
sorry, I was gonna add a little bit more too in terms of when I told you guys to I would recommend to start with play-by-play to maybe start and see where you are. But I think if ever you want to get into like analysis and color, even when you're watching a game and you're spectating a game, what could definitely help is putting on different hats. So, for example, if I'm going to be the play-by-play caster, I kind of put myself, if I'm going to be a color caster, I put different hats on. So the first one is I'm putting my hat on as the player that we're actually watching. So mechanically, what is he doing? What is he doing well? What is he doing not well? Which is why I'm saying knowing the fundamentals could definitely help. Then I put on the hat of the in-game leader of the team. So I start looking at the minimap a lot. Okay, so who's placed where? How many players are still alive? And how do you think they're going to adapt to the situation based on who's still alive on the other team? So you kind of theory craft of how the round is going to happen and what you're going to do in the position of an in-game leader. Then you have to look at it from an observer's perspective at that point now. So as you look at the minimap and you understand where their players are, where do you think the action is going to happen? And you could start focusing on that, where it could even help out the cameraman to set up for that camera shot so that you don't have a T-Tours in chat all the time for every kills that's missed. So I think about those different hats that you could put on in order to develop your analytical style. Sorry.
I love that you even thought about production. Like right in that. You're like, what would production need to know as well? And that's just there's so much you need to process.
No, for sure. I think production has to do a good job in terms of the observer has to be a good observer as well, so that they're able to see those shots that you might not be able to. So it really helps paint the picture, and even it makes the job easier for the play-by-play caster to really follow the action. Because if I'm going to be casting play-by-play and my cameraman is missing every single kill, then I have no idea what I'm casting. It goes back to casting a kill feed, and that's what we don't want. So sometimes a bad observer or somebody who's learning as an observer could also hinder to your casting style. So that's why you kind of need a synergy between both your color caster and yourself, and also from both casters with production and vice versa. So I think it's very important, maybe even before starting the broadcast, to have a sit down with your observer or even your color commentator if it's the first time you're working with them. Hey, what's your casting style? How do you work? This is how I work. How can we make this flow the right way when we're going to cast for the first time?
Yes, totally. Like let's really talk about, building that chemistry, because there are sometimes you show up, especially with Valorant, which, we're all just kind of getting into, where you will have never seen someone before.
Mm-hmm. No, that's it. And that's exactly what happened to myself with Simo, myself with Esports Doug, myself with, Bach. I worked with him a bit in Counter-Strike, but it's since it's a new game, we want to figure out what's going to be our casting style. So when I approached Simo, I was like, hey, what do you do? I've watched your demos. I see that you do a lot of play-by-play stuff. You do a lot of hype plays. He's a very good hype man. And he's like, you know what? I prefer to stick solely on play-by-play because I'm still learning the game. And then for me, even if I'm still learning the game, I kind of like I'm able to hybrid a lot because I was able to hybrid back in when I was casting CS:GO. So I know that on my end, what I have to do is try to focus a lot on looking at that minimap, what's going on in the situation, and then once Simo is done hyping it up, then it allows me to tie into what he's saying. But also at the same time, you want to figure out when you want to toss the microphone to each other, right? And I'm a strong believer that passing the microphone doesn't have to be a 50-50 in terms of he's going to play by play, I'm going to do color, and that's it. That's all. Sometimes you could blend in both styles and do a little bit of both. But he's
Yes.
yeah. But if he's actually more comfortable in doing play by play, you have to have the discussion with your play by play caster to say when would be good times for you to actually toss it back to me as a color commentary guy to put in like a sentence or two so I could pass it back to the action. So for example, freeze time. I recap what happened the previous round. I explain what's going on into the beginning of the round. Then once the action starts, I pass it to my co-caster. He's picking up the action. And then as soon as the trades happen, let's say in bomb site A of Dust 2, because we're going to go switch to Counter-Strike now, there's a trade of kills and they're planting right now at the A site. Well, there's not going to be any action for another maybe 5 or 10 seconds while the CTs are rotating. So I could use he could use that time to pass the mic to me so that I could summarize a quick play because the action's going to happen very soon. So you have a very small window to say two good things about the execution or what was bad about the defense. Pass it back to your play. He hides up the end of the round, and then you're able to do your full recap of the round after in the freeze time. So that's some of the things that you could actually take notes of and start developing as well. So I think if you're new to the game or new to the scene, my recommendation is maybe look at who's your favorite caster, who are the casters that you really like to listen to, and study how they actually broadcast and try to copy that style, but to a certain point. I always like to say copy to a certain point, then start developing your own style, and evolve that. And
it's like art. You're treating casting like art. I love it.
Exactly, and because to use your analogy here, it's like you're not going to have another Picasso. You're not going to have like there was a Picasso or Rembrandt, depending on what era you're in. And when you're actually a caster, they're not looking for an Anderson Sendler of CS:GO. They're not looking for an Antero of Rainbow Six. They're not looking for Uber Shouts of Overwatch. They're not looking for, I don't know, Captain Flowers of League of Legends. They're looking for the next you. Because why would they hire somebody like you who has a similar style to these guys already when they're already tier 1 casters? I'll just keep hiring this guy. So what new do you bring to the table as a caster in terms of your personality, in terms of how you deliver, in terms of how you just cast in general? It helps you in that sense to develop your own brand and hopefully get picked up into the scene later on.
And in terms of just, developing who you are, for instance, my experience is FGC, I try to avoid yipes all the time because everyone always kind of just turns into yipes and gets like picked up in the hype and swept away. And so when you're developing your own stuff, do you ever re-listen to your broadcasts? Because I can't, and that is my pitfall, and it's so hard. I just want to crawl away somewhere.
I've been shoutcasting for 18 years now, and it was only this year once I took Valorant more seriously, or just casting more seriously in general, and really want to push back into another career into esports. Excuse me. That I really started to re-listen to my broadcast. Like I somehow hate listening to my own voice. And even if people say, "Yo, you have a great voice and stuff," and I too, I re-listen to myself, and I'm like, "No, I don't. I don't know what you guys find that's good about it or not." And then it's just so hard to re-listen to ourselves. But we have to. You just have to, because it allows you to figure out what words am I repeating all the time? What am I missing actually on these plays? What could I have done differently on a certain call that I could have changed differently to actually make it better for the next broadcast? So re-listening to your own cast is definitely probably the best way to improve, because you're your own best critic. You're gonna be hard on yourself, but you're not gonna talk crap about yourself just like they do on Reddit and just like they do on Twitch. right? So I think from there,
Ah.
yeah, and that's going to help you once you develop your style to say, okay, I finally think that I have a right product to show my casting style, and I could actually show it to my peers after and see what they think. And even for me, to this day, I still haven't found my full style yet. I still try to continue to develop myself and evolve as I go. But if you haven't started yet and you don't know where to start, like I said, after listening to your favorite caster and trying to figure out their style, and you want to try to mimic that style to start, then start looking at demos of other games that you actually have never seen before. The reason why, because it adds an element of surprise, because every time you're casting a new match for a new league, it's always going to be an element of surprise anyways. You don't know what's going on. So if you already know a result of a past match and you're trying to cast that match, it takes away from what's genuine into your broadcast. So
That organic.
exactly. So take a new demo, mute that recording, start recording yourself over it. See how you do after you re-listen to yourself, and you're gonna start catching it. Or am I saying too much? Am I repeating the same word? Am I saying kill, kill, kill too many times? Can I develop certain things? And then you start creating your own style, your own personality once you master kind of like those basic of what I said before, like the voice, the cadence, the tone, the storytelling, and such.
Now, have you ever had a partner that you just absolutely clicked with? Because I'm always trying to find like that peanut butter to my jelly. And when I see casters who are just like, yeah, we already figured out our hand signals and like we do this and this, I was like, good for you. I'm happy. I'm
Sure.
not jealous at all.
No,
So have you had that yet?
not yet, unfortunately. So maybe
It's so
like
hard.
maybe back then before esports was esports and we're still casting in the golden days. Like I had some very good broadcasts with a co-caster called Smeagol, another guy called Human, and that's when we we're doing Counter Strike 1.5 and 1.6, and then Warwitch when I casted with them in Call of Duty 1. That was Call of Duty 1 for PC, by the way. There was actually an esports for Call of Duty 1 on PC back in like 2004. But then once I got into CSGO, I was doing a lot of events with Launders, and it was perfect because I was more of a play-by-play guy in CSGO, and Launders is very analytical / color caster. But I was still working a full-time career job where that made it a little bit easier for me to say I want to stick to that and then do esports as a side job or as a hobby, so that I could at least have stability in terms of like benefits, pension plan, and stuff like that as well, which you don't have, by the way, in esports, especially in freelancing for casting. So you kind of weigh the pros and the cons, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to stick to my real-time job, or full-time job rather. And then Launders found Scrawny, and then Scrawny and Launders kind of like became the duo before I got to Ask. Now that I'm in Valorant, I think I had a very good start with Simo, but as him and I are very both similar in terms of play-by-play in hype, although I bring a little bit more analytical and color, I'm trying to find somebody that's going to be able to allow us to do a hybrid casting, so that maybe one person is going to take most of the play-by-play, but if we could switch over from time to time as him analyzing, and then I could switch to a hype play because I want to scream, then it'll be great. So as Valorant is still new and as the scene is still developing, I think I'm still looking for the right caster as well.
Yeah, and it makes the moment that much more magical when the audience can also feel the chemistry, because I'm sure you've been there as much as I have, where sometimes you're working with someone and you're like, it's a no.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure, well, you haven't had this, but I've had like almost like been like sexually harassed on stream where they're just like, hey, and I'm like, we're good, and back to the
Kind of weird.
where it just doesn't work. And I just
That's the play, guys. That's not the play.
yeah, so it's just so hard to also think of, as you said earlier, the audience, right? And how are you going to bring the audience into your storytelling?
Mm-hmm. No, that's it for sure. And I think another, and even online these days is very hard to do, because even if you think you found the right person, you might still stumble in terms of your broadcast online, because a broadcast online, for example, when Jackie was saying they all got their hand signals and stuff like that too, You can't do that on an online broadcast. The only thing that you see is in game, but you don't have a feed of your co-caster, so you can't hand signal to them to be like, oh, I got something good that I could actually say very quickly and pass it back to you. So there's going to be some fumbles here and there, and I think even if you find the right person, it might not gel immediately at the start, but bless you, but give it some time. Give it some time to develop, actually. And that was exactly what happened with, for example, Intero and Kickstar. They weren't really the best when they first started together, but I think the more they're able to sit down and review their demos together and say, oh, we should have done this different, we should have done this different. Look at them now. I mean, they've been in the past like announced as the Esports Caster of the Year, and they're doing super well now as a duo. So I think, as Jackie was mentioning again, when we say don't really give up, don't give up on your duo either. So that's why even Simo and myself, we're trying to do like a demo review of a broadcast as well and see how we could develop together. But if we do find somebody else, we're open with trying with other people as well.
Yeah, I like when it's two people with a similar style, because I feel as a viewer, it's easier for me to digest. Where sometimes when it is that yin and a yang, I'm like, I don't know where I am in a broadcast. So I think there's strength to having someone similar to you work with you as well, because it feels more balanced. There's already so much on the screen, you know?
Yeah. I think that is definitely, when it comes down to that, I believe that it's very subjective, right? Depending on the listening audience too. So even for everybody that's in this meeting right now, that some people might prefer, like, for example, if you guys know Scrawny and Launders, again, in the CSGO example, is Scrawny is very storytelling, then he's going to be the hype man. And then you have Launders that's like going to be very low, almost monotone at some point, where he actually now is starting to be a little bit more upbeat to tone it up with Scrawny. But even the tone of voices are kind of different. That makes you like, oh, it's a different person talking. So it makes it a little bit easier to digest. For example, in this conversation, if to have you talk as a woman, me as a man, it makes it a little bit easier to listen and digest as well. So that if I was talking all the time, I think all of these guys would be sleeping.
No. They're awake. They're awake. You better be awake, you children. It's only 8:30. It's not bedtime yet. One of my favorite moments of you casting is actually when Davey runs up. I think it was like 6 years ago. Davey runs up and gives you a big old kiss on the face.
Yeah.
And then since then, he's won $30,000, combined. So I really think Davey should thank you for his success. You are the good luck in his life.
Oh yeah, it was actually pretty funny because that was at the I think it was the MLG Columbus Minor back in like 2016, I would like to say. But even before then, when ESWC was kind of still around, there was an ESWC qualifier in Montreal where Davey was playing for Mobility Gaming with Zek and Sidoff, and I think Daps was still in there too. And they were playing versus iBuyPower, and iBuyPower back then, rip iBuyPower, were basically dominating the whole scene. And then after they lost their game, I think I had Sidoff on one side and then Davey on the other side. They come up to me and they kiss me on each cheek, but Davey actually kissed me on the eye, so I got pink eye for like 2 weeks.
No way.
It was pretty jokes for that one too, so I couldn't open my eye on my left eye for a bit. But then don't tell him, guys. Don't tell him about that story.
Oh my God.
But then we got to the MLG Minor, and then he pulled that on me while I was actually doing like an interview of him, and then closing. So somehow I don't know how I was able to maintain my composure, but as he's kissing me, I'm still closing off the segment to throw it to a break. So I still have a pat in the back for that one.
Oh, I love that. But because we did the positive, there is also, now we must talk about the dark side of casting, and I just want to kind of refer to something that we talked about earlier a couple weeks ago, and that's the competitive nature of casting, and that it's competitive even if you're not a player, and kind of what that means for esports to have, it's a competition even if you're not the competitive player.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think when you guys are seeing it yourselves, when it comes to like Counter-Strike Go or League of Legends or Rainbow Six, there's not that many room for new talent to come in, right? Unless like you build challenger leagues and you start to build more collegiate events and stuff like that too. But if everybody's in this channel or in this meet are aspiring casters and eventually want to get onto a big stage, the places are very limited for that too. So, and that's why I keep telling everybody that talks to me is like, you have to develop your own casting style because if there's always going to be an Anders on the big stage, why would you be an Anders Jr.? We want to have a Jethro Flover as a caster. We want to have Kevin Tang to build your own style, and hopefully you guys get picked up so that you could get onto the big stage. Um, and I think another thing that's very important to try to develop your branding and um, and your chances to do more events is to always be very humble. I think being humble and networking are like two of my biggest things that are like the pluses for me. Because I've been doing it for 2003 until 2020, part time, full time here and there. I'm still able to get good casting gigs because I was networking with all these people in the past. So as big as esports is, like there's Fortnite events, there's League of Legends events, there's CS:GO events, every person in the industry kind of really knows each other anyways. So that could be as true for sponsors, for tournament organizers, for talent themselves, uh,
Yup.
and like a bunch of players actually, investors and stuff like that too. They have known your name, you've crossed path at some point, crossed paths at some point, or if they heard about you for the first time, you're somehow blowing up, they are going to start talking to other people like, who's this guy, and that person knows you from a past experience. So being very humble and marketing yourself well is definitely going to play a good part into your chances of getting more casting gigs and hopefully blow up within the scene too. Because if, for example, as we said before, we're using platforms where Twitter is very open that allows you to be very vocal about things. If you're kind of too negative about it, though, and you're always going to be having that type of attitude, none of those people want to work with you, and that's already closing your doors without you even knowing. Because you could have a person like you could be the guy approaching immortals that are doing an event, but then they're gonna hire, I don't know, let's say Caster X, and Caster X is like, I know this guy's attitude, and I don't want to work with him. And without you even knowing, it's a different excuse to say from immortals that's going to say, oh, sorry, we can't really use you, we're kind of full. And then they just talk to each other under different orgs and stuff like that too, and all those doors are closing down. So be humble, be very positive about your outcome, working with the people. I'm not saying like bend yourself backwards, and like do
Yeah,
what you
know your worth.
exactly know your worth as well for sure. But at the same time, approach it with a very humble way that allows, that makes you very likable. I think the more you're
Mhm.
very likable, the more easier it is to continue to have these conversations with the people that hire you and also your peers that are casting with you as well. Because who knows, everybody's going to switch to a new game. Let's say Valorant dies, and then it's going to be Cyberpunk 77 esports somehow, and everybody's moving to that. Well, you're going to have players, casters coming from different games into that scene,
Mhm.
and like I said, everybody knows each other at that point.
And it's so true. And I've even been in the position where I've met other casters, and if the first thing they want to approach me with is drama in the scene, mentally, like they just think, oh, like she sometimes does CPT stuff, but I'm doing events and I'm talking to industry professionals, and I'm like, it's instantly crossed out. Like I'm like, it's a no. And
Yeah.
more times than not, you just see the people who really want to create that toxicity get blacklisted. They might get opportunities in other games here and there, and on social media, it appears to be okay. But if you don't have that authentic, you know, really caring kind of personality off stream too,
Mhm.
it totally can shoot you in the foot. And I'm
Yeah,
not saying like you can't trash talk. I mean, I love trash talk as much as the next one, but it's like, how are you trash talking? You know,
exactly.
if you're just shitting on someone, just being like, oh, she's so ugly, she did this, she did this, she did this, people aren't going to be there. But if it's like good, like, oh, you got thrown again, are you going to get thrown this tournament? You know, there's definitely a substantial difference, and
Yep.
I totally like what you say. Totally resonates with me. Where the show floor, you are still at work. Twitter, you are still at work. You
Exactly.
know, you're going to get a burger at the convention where there's gaming. You're still at work. And for me, that was hard. I had to do a lot of growing up from when I started commentating, because you're kind of always on, and that can be draining. I
Yeah.
mean, you've
Definitely.
survived. Oh God, I think, yeah, my first CS:GO tournament was at 16 hours the first day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't bring that to Twitter. It'd be like, yo, this event is shit, you know? So it's that's even in then. Like you say that kind of stuff, the TO reads that, they're like, oh shit, I don't want to work with this guy ever again. Like he makes me look bad. I
Mhm.
paid this. I paid this mofo to cast for me, and this is
Yeah.
how he's gonna treat me. That's another thing too. And yeah, I think as Jackie says, you guys are really off the clock, off work in esports online once you're not tweeting, you're not on Instagram, you're not on TikTok, Snapchat, you're not on broadcasting days, or you're in a hotel room, you're relaxing, you're with your significant other, you're with your friends. That's where you don't have like an online presence. That's when your time is off, and that could be like an 18-hour day. It could be a 14-hour day. It could be whatever, you know. So be careful and mindful about that as well. And I think one more thing that I could add in terms of maybe a watch out and a tip and how things are hard is payment, right? So I don't know, like as positive as I am right now in my tweets and everything too, there's one organization that I'm super negative about so far, and I'm okay with it because I'm okay to burn bridges with these people because they've already burned it with me. And the reason why I wasn't able to collect my rate that has been paid for me yet is because I have no real support in terms of a contract being signed. So that is something that, coming back into the scene, I learned very early of how things have changed and how things work and how things haven't changed in 18 years that I've been in it. And I think the most
Yeah.
important part is make sure that they have a contract for you and that you're signing it. Of course, read it first, but then allow with that, like add late fees and stuff like that too to make sure that's signed. And that if they promise to deliver a 30-day net or a 6-day net payment, that's in the contract as well. So, for example, one event that just happened in July, they approached me on a Thursday and they're like, Vansilli, we really need somebody to actually cast this weekend. We heard about you. That was recommended by somebody else. The event is Friday to Sunday. This is the rate, and can you do it? I was like, yeah, let's do it. And it's actually, sorry guys, but it's also it was in an email. So I was like, okay, maybe the email is good enough for me, but the email doesn't have all those policies and written dotted lines that's going to protect me if, for
Mhm.
example, they don't pay me. So as they tell me it's a 60-day net to pay me, today we are October 22nd. So we are 100 plus days since I've invoiced him on July 9th of this year, and I still haven't seen that money. So,
Yep. That's a reality.
oh yeah, and it's a
That's a
tough debate
reality.
too. It's a tough debate as well because at the same time as you're trying to get into the scene as a caster and you're trying to make your name, you have an opportunity now to have, oh, it's a big organization that wants to hire me, and why are they not going for the golden boy? Why are they not going for Chris Puckett? Why are they not going for Rivington? I have an opportunity now. So your debate is now, should I just bite the bullet and just do the event and see what happens after? If you're okay of not getting paid at some point and you just want to risk it, sure, why not? But if this is your only means to put food on the table and you want to commit to a full-time broadcasting lifestyle and career, then you have to, what my dad loves to say, CYB, cover your butt, right? And
I
that's,
love that. CYB.
yeah, cover your butt, cover your ass with CYA. Just make sure that the contract is there, and you say, look, I'm not going to start doing the event until we sign an agreement. And if they're going to be like, sorry, then we're going to find somebody else. Then you know what? Sometimes it could be a positive for you. That's 18 hours, 20 hours of broadcasting that I did that wasn't paid for me, that I could have done a different event. And even if that event paid less, I'm still making more money because the other event didn't pay me, right?
Yep.
So, sorry guys again.
Exactly.
But and that's the thing. So make sure you guys have that set up as well to make sure that that is signed, because they are very last minute, even with TOs these days, that they are going to have a contract with you maybe the day after, the day of, or the day before. So once in the conversation start, as soon as the rate's negotiated, just please make sure, hey, can you rush a contract, because I'm not going to work until we have a contract signed.
Yes. And read the contract you sign, because I mean, I'm still in a death contract, where I cannot speak my truth
Yeah.
until March 4th, 2023. So, you really need to read the contract as well, because if you're mistreated and if you're grossly mistreated, chances are you can't speak about it depending on the kind of contract you sign. So really, that is the best advice, the cover your butt.
Yeah.
That,
There are
that speaks to me.
for sure. There are actually esports lawyers and stuff like that, and I guess the angle of lawyers with esports is starting to grow a lot. Actually, for example, I'm currently in talks to possibly sign with a talent agency, and tomorrow I have a call with a lawyer to actually look over the contract with me to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and making sure that if there's a termination in the clause, what's positive, what's negative, am I going to get screwed somewhere? And sometimes with all the legality mumbo jumbo, you might miss it because it's like it's way too many words. We read diagonally and we might miss some parts. Only thing that sucks is that lawyers do cost a lot of money. So they usually charge you by the hour. The lawyer that I'm talking to is charging me $250,000. Ballin'. No, just $250, which is still a lot though. $250 an hour for consultation. So once you get to that point, that you want to really starting to look at getting representation or really serious about getting into it, just make sure that there's a lot of investments that has to go into it before it could actually kick things off. Like even sidetrack and tangent. When I got back into casting with Valorant, I've actually spent, looking at my whole year right now, possibly about close to $6,000-7,000 in July.
Yep.
When, thankfully enough, when I got let go by my previous company, I had a very good severance package. So I used that to invest into myself so that I could actually have, for example, when somebody wants to hire me, they're going to say, okay, does Vansilli have a good internet connection? Does Vansilli have a good camera? How is his lighting? Because all those things is definitely going to help you in terms of getting hired as well. Because you could have the best voice, but if you're going to be on a pixelated camera and your lighting is just your monitor, you don't look good for the organization as a product. Besides Jackie, she's radiant. She's beautiful and radiant all the time.
Just use the screen. It's fine. See, kids, use the screen. That's what mom uses. Not joking.
So you don't have to like fully like go for a loan and then spend all that money right away. Like for example, if you start with a mediocre camera, lighting could definitely help to start things off. So start with lighting. You get paid, invest that back into your casting gear, build a camera or buy a camera. Then after that, you can make more events, put into a mixer, put into a microphone, put it into a broadcast microphone if you're going to be on a stand-up mic later on too. So overall, I think I like I said, I've invested about $6,000 or $7,000, and it took me, a couple of months to get that money back and back into my investment, where I'm in the positive now. But don't go all in one shot, because let's be fair and honest here. Do we know if we have what it takes to be a good caster, right? So as you practice and as you learn, think about that first and try to see where you are. If there's people that are saying you have potential, and please ask them to be very honest about it too. Do you have what it takes or not? Because if they're always going to be super nice and they're always going to be like, seems as though you have it, but they're always putting you on that string to be like, next one, then you've lost your money and your investment too, right? It's not easy to broadcast. Like I said, doing 18 years, I'm still not good at it. I still have a lot to work on.
That's the humbleness coming out. Don't listen to that. That is the humbleness coming out. This guy is godlike on the mic. I'm so jealous of your cadence, like all the time.
It, but like I said, I feel like I'm not there yet. So, but thankfully, people still want to hire me. So I think that's where it helps as well, right? So that's definitely another big tip that I would love to recommend to you guys for sure if you're looking to get into casting, right? As soon as you look great on camera, that's a great start as well too. Like, what I mean, like gear, right? I'm not a pretty face either, so it's just
stop that.
Face for radio.
Cut that out. No deprivation here. Listen, And what I really liked is just like the investing in yourself.
Yes.
Like when you see this man on camera, it's a suit. So, everyone, you can go. It doesn't need to be expensive.
Mhm.
That I think is what holds people back. Just get a good fit. And there are plenty of places where you can get a well fitted blazer, matching slacks, and then the shirt can be your personality. That can be
Mhm.
whatever you want. But
Mhm.
you need to show up serious because everybody wants to be on the mic.
Yeah. Even a sports jacket sometimes is good enough too, because especially if you're going to be standing up, like you're standing behind a desk, a broadcasting desk, or an analyst desk. Some of the casters today to just keep wearing jeans or whatnot, right? But it's also important once you talk to the TOs that hire you is what's the wardrobe actually, right? So
Mm.
invest if you need to, because even me working from home, I'm not wearing suits. I don't fit in them anymore because of COVID. But when it comes to like live events, that I wear a suit for sure. But there's
Mhm.
also a debate today of like, is it worth it for us to actually always wear suits or not? Like League of Legends always do. Counter Strike's always been more of like a relaxed kind of thing. Rainbow Six has like always been top notch in their dressing style. And for example, Valorant, if it's Riot and they work the same way as they do with League of Legends, you're gonna need to suit up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really, for instance, like I will go out and I will wear a hoodie and have a smoke, but I'm already established. I can Steve Jobs it because I'm already there. I can just show up and do that, and people are like, "Oh, I know who this is."
Yeah.
But if you're just starting out and you kind of have like a little bit of a blasé attitude, people are gonna be like, you really need to show up in some way, and not to make it about church, but like sometimes your Sunday best is just the best thing you own,
Mhm, mhm.
so that can help you in casting. Dress for the job you want.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Do
And
you
like I
mind if we do questions?
No, not at all. And like I said, and just before we get to questions too, it's make sure you guys check what yo, you know what? Tip Top Tailors is actually pretty awesome too. I actually
Yes.
some Tip Top Tailors, some Moors, whatever, man. As long
Yeah.
I'll even go to H&M. And H&M, and even
Great.
winners can have some good suits for 200-300 bucks. And sometimes if you have that frame that fits off the rack,
Hmm.
then so be it. Somebody that's gonna watch you on stream is not gonna be like, oh, I know this suit from Moors. I know this suit from Winners. Nobody knows
they're
that.
not they're
So
not gonna know. Yeah.
exactly,
It
and then
doesn't have to be expensive.
exactly, just make sure you know your wardrobe as well for the event, because if everybody else is going to be super casual, but you're in a suit, then you're going to stick out like a sore thumb as well. So
I did that for Capcom Cup because I find a lot of times young people
mhm.
take for grant, and I don't want to, like, yeah, I'm just going to generalize. I think a young people problem is taking moments for granted.
Yep,
And so when I got the Capcom Cup opportunity, I was like, yes, I am buying the full Capcom blue
yeah,
organza ballroom gown. I don't care because am I going to get hit by a bus tomorrow? I don't know. So you can't waste any opportunity, no matter how small. Really, you always have to treat it like I might not get another job. That's what I like to do. I don't know if that's amazing advice, but I'm always worried.
you know what? I think it's a great advice, because at the same time, even if you've made it, you don't know how long you're going to make it for. Because when we talk about competition before, it's super competitive. So if you let go of the gas at some point, just like any professional athlete too, if you think you've made it to NHL or you think you've made it to collegiate for football, and then you're just gonna be like, well, I'll just let them. I got the money and I've been chosen because of my skills, and then you kind of let go. If you're not playing that well, then boom, you're not it. You're not there anymore for the next event for the next year. So again, it comes down to being humble, being hardworking, being
Mhm.
likable, all that kind of stuff, you know. So
Yeah. And I would say you have those qualities in spades, if I could add.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Just,
Thank
yeah. We when we met, I didn't know he was secretly FGC. Okay, kids.
you.
And this guy is secretly OG FGC. He was bringing out like Can Cup shirts. We were watching streams. I was like, okay, okay, we got a real one alert.
No, well, I mean, I try to watch. Like, I'm a fan of esports in general. Just to be able, like, my biggest goal is to be able to find ways to also help push esports to like the mainstream kind of thing, and to be accepted by the general public. And
Mhm.
that's I think it's definitely coming in due time, because right now, as people in this channel, right, like you guys are the future of esports as well. And as we have more investors that are getting older, you're going to have more investors that are younger too that understand esports and stuff like that as well. It's going to get there, but I just want to try to figure out ways how we could accelerate it. So in order to do so too, I got to learn a little bit more about different scenes. So it's not about only tactical shooters that where I'm well versed in, like Valorant and Counter Strike, but I watch Brawl whenever I see Brawl on Twitch. I watch FGC when it's up there too, with Mortal Kombat 11, with Street Fighter. And I love watching Canada Cup. I love watching like the Summit for Smash. I'm trying to watch Worlds, but it's kind of a little bit too late for me right now to watch Worlds, because I like to sleep and I like to game and I like to stream.
Yep. Yep.
But I try to dip my toes here and there, and just to try to be not necessarily relevant, but to understand a little bit about different esports categories in order to build a whole business acumen, I guess, about esports.
And that kind of segues perfectly into our first question, talking about looking at other scenes. One of our students asked, what are some of your favorite grounding, breathing techniques? Oh, no, wait. Someone asked about, there, it's above. La, la, la. Are there any habits or quirks in the casting of major sports that you appreciate for casting in esports? That was it. So is there anything in sports that you see that you're like, I can bring this into esports?
Mm-hmm. Especially when that's a very good question, actually, and especially when I was listening to a lot of AM radio, because I like going to the gym a lot, and then driving home, it's kind of like in the middle of the Montreal Canadiens hockey game, so I have to turn on AM radio to listen to it, and just to listen to how those people actually know when it's the right moment to hype up a play, the shot, the plays, the pass, and to have that cadence and that narrative that I was talking about before. I think that you could definitely translate it a lot into your casting style, especially when you're doing video games, because within video games too, it's like you don't have shots where you get back to the commentators to talk. You're just really trying to describe the game. So to really listen to how those people do it, it's actually really, really fun to mimic that as well. I don't have a specific sportscaster that I love in terms of their style that I try to mimic into my esports career. I think for me, like I said, like when I first started, it was actually Warwitch. So Warwitch, unfortunately, he's not around anymore because of #MeToo, right, guys? We gotta be good about that as well.
Yep.
But when I first listened to him cast, this guy had the golden voice, and I was like, yo, I want to be able to listen to or be the same way that he broadcasts, because he was so hyped into his plays that I want to be like, how do I have that voice? And then I tried to build it, and I didn't, until I realized in the end I could actually build my own casting style. And then you have other people now that I'm watching Twitch chat, or like I'm playing Valorant. It's like, yo, is that V Vansilli? Yo, I love your casting style. I love your casting style, and it's just like super humbling to hear and super cool. But I definitely actually I have a lot of esports casters that I like to listen to. For example, Sadokist. Sadokist is like one of the best storytellers and the best casters that I've listened to, that's able to do like pull analogies and comparisons off the fly that just makes it roll off the tip of the tongue in a broadcast, and just be like, I wish I was able to find words like he does. Like, it's the Big Apple and Snacks is hungry. Come on, like that's amazing to listen to when VP was like storming it up on Cobble. So I think listening to a lot of esports casters as well, I think I prefer that more than sportscasters themselves.
Yeah, there's like people always try to draw so many comparisons between sports and esports, but I think really they're two separate beasts. There's sometimes where, there's a little bit of blurring over, but we're the people shaping this space. It's what we envision.
Yeah, I do believe that, because when you're looking at, for example, sportscast or sports broadcasting, what I do like though is segments that they have. So the way that they do segments on the analyst desk, the way that they have the lower thirds to update different games and stuff like that too, those are some of the things that are actually taken in from sports into esports that you see with League of Legends and that you see with Counter-Strike. But overall, when it comes down to like how to spectate the game or how the game should be casted and stuff like that too, you try to put a sportscaster in this stuff, they can't do it. They just can't. And then I'm fairly confident that any esports broadcaster that knows a little bit about hockey or the basics about the history of certain players, certain organizations, I think you guys could do a great job as a sportscaster too. So I think even then, like when I did the event in Barrie, when I was hosting and broadcasting paintball with Marissa Roberto.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, so the producer of that event is Sam, or the camera, or the production truck, sorry, is Sam Cicerello, and he is basically a producer that does a lot of the Ottawa Senators and Winnipeg Jets matches. And he came up to me and was like, I really love your work. Let's keep in touch. We exchanged emails and phone numbers, and he texted me like, I actually do see you as a sports broadcaster if you ever were thinking of doing that as a career. And I was like, I would love to do that stuff, sir, but I don't know from hockey players or the history of the organization that allows me to be able to do that. But just to have that type of pedigree in terms of a producer say that stuff to me, holy, that feel good.
I would recommend texting him back and being like, yeah, I'll figure it out. you'll figure it out. It's a stick puck go.
I'm here for the esports, not for the regular sports anyways. So I'm humbled by him, but I still want to push esports anyways. Who cares about traditional sports? Esports, real sports.
That's right. That's right. All right, we have another question. What are some of your favorite grounding, breathing techniques that you practice during high stress casting environments?
That's a really good question too, actually, because even when you listen to my broadcast recently, and that's something that I'm trying to work on, is I don't have that right now. So when it comes down to trying to do play-by-play, but you're trying to say too much of the hype, you got to find the right moments in a broadcast within that play to just take a step back and relax, right? So for example, if a guy is walking to a site and there's already action happening in an execution, so you're calling all that stuff out, but there's one specific player that's getting 2 or 3 kills, but there's action still happening. At some point, though, there's a small moment, like a split second or a second or two, where people are trying to find each other around, let's say, bomb site A again of Dust 2. They're playing around the green boxes, and you could use that time to just take a pause and a breather and then continue right after. But I think another big thing that helped me was, again, when I was talking about investing into ourselves, right? So I invested into a stand-up desk, and I invested into a broadcast headset mic. So when it comes down to actually broadcasting, I put this up, and then I stand up when I broadcast. So when you actually stand up when you broadcast, it helps you with the breathing, right? So it helps you with the breathing, and at the same time, it helps build a diaphragm. So when you're standing straight, you're actually able to breathe a little bit better when you're talking, which allows you to actually project more voice actually when you're actually casting as well. So now when you're actually starting to build the storyline, and then you're getting into the action, you could see now you're really pulling it out from your diaphragm more than just trying to go through your voice. All right.
Wow, I'm shook.
Yeah.
The stand-up desk technique.
Yeah.
Hawks.
This is a game changer for sure. Again, like I think when I started casting CS:GO, maybe towards the end, standing up and broadcasting definitely does help into all of that, to project your voice and to really bring the hype and a strong tone into your casting. And then after that, you start to the breathing techniques. I think it's a lot of like just meditation before. I think the tea and honey is another good one for me too, especially if you're doing long hours. Just to keep your vocal cords like smooth and not strained. That's definitely going to help a lot too. If not, like cognac. No, no, but definitely some of the things.
That's a Montreal technique.
I think it helps you relax in terms of your breathing, right? So just the big breathe-ins, the big breathe-outs, so that when you're breathing in, you could really feel your diaphragm move. So you want to try to like mimic that when you're talking too. I think that could definitely help.
I'm still shook. The stand-up desk. Yes, I'm about it. I'm about it. We have another question. How are you for time?
I got player time. I'm actually, like I said, I feel bad right now too, because you guys are all in your midterms and we've definitely fully passed this half hour. So if you guys definitely want to keep talking, I'm all here.
Yeah,
Sure.
I just feel bad because I was like, it's gonna be like 30 minutes, you know. And then we're like, hey, do you remember the time? 'Cause
Well,
that's what happens when we go back.
we could ask the chat. I mean, if they want to keep going, I could definitely keep going as well. Whoever wants to step out is good for me too. I'm here.
Yeah, there's still questions coming in. So another one they ask is, what were some interesting issues you ran into mid broadcast, such as technical problems? How do you deal with them?
Oh, dude, so actually that just happened last weekend for me actually when I was broadcasting the Renegades Invitational. So if you look at Saturday's, is it Saturday's broadcast? It was Sunday's broadcast, if I'm not sure. So Sunday's if I'm pretty sure about it, because it was Bach and I casting all day. So Sunday's broadcast, we did technical AV, so audio visual tests, and everything was going smoothly. And then I was using my Focusrite interface instead of my mixer. That I think I finally fixed it for next time. But I was using my Focusrite and my broadcast headset, and then suddenly, as soon as we went into the game, I'm getting word from production that my voice is sounding robotic, and there's some issues going on. And so you're trying to scramble at the same time, like closing your browser to close vmix, which is the broadcast software that we use for some of the broadcasters, or closing Discord, for example, if it's Discord. So you're closing all of these, you're trying to relog in. Your co-caster is being told to continue into the scene, but then you get back into the game and the round is over. He's done talking, but you haven't seen the round at all. So you're trying to scramble onto what to say. So that went on for like a good minute to 5 minutes before we could actually fix it, and then we started going. So I think one of the biggest tips that I could probably do from that I could let you guys know in terms of like technical problems, issues. One of the most important ones that was given to me while I was still working with TSN, Team Sportscast Network, and doing audio only was don't call out the technical difficulties, because it kind of makes the production look bad, or it makes the tournament organizer think that they don't know what they're doing. So I think whenever there's going to be a technical pause or tactical pause, it's going to be a technical pause, even if it's in game or about the production itself. Use that time to just say, hey, this is what happened this round, this is what happened the previous round, and then try to turn it into a podcast to just smoothen back into the game. Is like, okay, looks like we're back, let's fall back into the action. So if you continue to make them look good during a downtime, you look good, and if you look good, they hire you again, right? So I think that's definitely a nice tip that I've gotten for that. And I think another thing too, when it comes down to technical difficulties or you just fumbling your words when you're broadcasting, is have fun with it, guys. Like, it's live. If ever there's a mistake that you've said or something that went wrong, don't dwell too much and try to say like, oh, I said this wrong, I mean to correct myself, while there's action happening at the same time too. Do that whole meme of like, F it, we'll do it live. And then if there's a mistake, laugh it off and keep going. And then that part that was full of lulls and T-tours or whatever, caster shit on Twitch chat, is going to change a round or two later when you've actually caught like that big play later on. So I think don't be afraid of making mistakes either. But those mistakes are the reason why you need to look back at your demos to try to evolve into the next cast too.
Yeah, because it's going quick.
Yeah.
They're asking, what are good places to start out for casting? Because obviously we do not have Winamp anymore, so that it's going to be tough to submit our showcast demo. But how do you approach the request to be a caster? Which I'm sure you have way better methods than me. Mine's just bully.
No.
Just like, let me on.
Yeah. Well,
let me on. I'm important. They're like, you're an attention whore. And I'm like, at least I'm trying. I want that mic.
You know what? It's very similar actually. There's a lot. So again, and it's at the same time, it ties back to what we were talking about before about being humble, right? So whenever you're talking to all these TOs and saying, I would love to have a shot, and they don't have a way, you don't have the way of proving that, or you feel like you've proven enough by doing so many amateur leagues, tier 2, tier 3 events, and you're still not getting picked up. First off, don't bring that to Twitter. Be like, I can't believe these guys are never going to hire me, or why is this talent being announced a tier talent where I could do such a better job than this person? That's definitely a no-go. But
Yes.
I
Thank you. I
I
see it too many times. There's so many politics behind the scenes.
yeah.
Why aren't I getting picked? I'm like, this is why.
This is not, yeah, exactly. So be humble about it, congratulate them, and then figure out how you could get onto the next one. And I think to be able to do so is work behind the scenes, talk to the co-commentators or the people that are actually on that talent pool to be like, hey, what can I do to be where you are? And that leads to the tip that I wanted to tell you guys too is I think a lot of these casters still, whenever they have the time, don't mind answering DMs. Like my DMs are always open on Twitter, where I had Simo message me, I had Esports Doug message me, I have a couple of people message me at the same time saying like, oh, like how do I get into Valorant? Oh, First Strike is coming. How do I get into that? Or I'm just trying to figure out, hey, like for example, Doorcasts. I watched a demo review with him to give him tips about his casting, maybe about a week or two ago. So I'm always in a position, or I love to be in a position where I could help wherever I can. So just like now, whatever experience I can give you guys, or whatever way that I can help you in terms of um, tips in terms of broadcasting. If you enjoy my broadcast and you want to learn my casting style, then I have no issues of answering your DMs and then have a call and have a talk. And I think somebody like Golden Boy also, well, I don't want to name drop his name just in case that suddenly after he gets like 20 messages to be like, yo, Vansilli tells me you answer all DMs. But I think in general, like just shooting your shot of just sending a DM, you have nothing to lose. If you're like, hey, I'm an aspiring caster and I love the way that you cast and I want to be like you to eventually have my own style, can I have some word of advice? I think a lot of these people don't mind messaging you back and telling you their track record or their history in casting as well. And then if you are able to build those relationships to start things off, looking at demos, and then suddenly you watch the demo together, and then they're like, "Yo, this guy's actually pretty good." Then, by chance, they could probably slip your name into the tournament organizer and whatnot, so that you could actually get those chances later.
Yeah. And just shouts to the first year students. If you are still 18 and under, you're a minor. You're a child. Get over it. You're still a child. Do not DM anyone. No, no one wants to talk to you. Wait until you are an adult and then go message people. But if you're a minor, like thank you, dry your eyes. You are a child still. So do not DM anyone. I refuse to normalize adults talking to kids, and I care about your safety. That's my mom tip of the day.
There you go.
Yeah, because I just hate that when they're like, hey, I'm in high school and I want to go to Humber. And I'm like, we have a recruitment team. Thanks for coming out. Go talk to recruitment.
Oh yeah.
How do you practice casting when you're not on the job?
Mm. Yeah, so I think the same tips that I've given you guys in terms of like rewatching, or I guess at that point is that you're not trying to rewatch your demos and you just want to try to build your style a little bit more, is the similar to just trying to, for the hell of it, like practice your cadence, practice your tone of voice, practice how you want to actually project your voice as well. So I think even without thinking about the technicalities of casting into a game, even like for example, come game day and I have to be at an event and broadcast, I'm actually in the shower practicing what I want to say. Like, how should I say this thing? How should I call these things? I think that's a great way to like mentally prepare yourself for these type of big events. And I
Mhm.
think to prepare for the events in general is to actually do the same thing, taking those VODs that you haven't seen before and start casting them, and then record them so you could share it with your peers or people that could give you that advice, so that they could give you more in terms of, okay, maybe you can work on this. I really like this part. Nobody's really gonna, I don't believe a single person that's gonna shut you down in terms of you, if they've already taken the time to listen to your demo, they're not gonna say you're shit unless you're in Hollywood, and then it's just cut. But I think in terms of esports, is everybody has a genuine love for esports and they want to see it grow, and we're really open to building the next generation of talent. They'll give you the advice, they'll give you the constructive criticism that you need. But before you get to that part, start developing your casting style. So keep recording demos, re-listen to yourself to see what's going well or not. And then once you find a just medium of like, I feel comfortable at where I am right now, start looking to build that demo reel and send it to some people so they could actually have a chance.
Oh, the demo reel. That is where you really hear yourself and you're like, I hate me today. That's how I always feel.
Oh yeah. Oh
I'm
yeah.
just like, oh, do I have to? Okay, but I'm glad it's not just me because I was just
No,
like,
no.
ah, but you need to make it. You gotta have the real. Okay, to flip it to be, let's bring it up again. What is your best experience that you've ever had as a caster?
Oh man. I think it was going back to my two first events ever. I don't think necessarily it has to be to like I've casted this game like a god and like revere me for this cast. I think it's definitely for the experience of it. So my first ever event was CPL Summer 2003. I've actually posted a picture on my Twitter about it just a few days ago. If I could find it while I'm talking, I'm gonna take a screenshot of it now and post it in the questions so you guys can see. But um, when I went to CPL Summer 2003 to see that there's actually like a competitive scene and that people are bringing their computers. There's players flying from different events or from different parts of the world, like Europe, for example, Sweden, UK, even Korea to come compete. And you're like, holy crap, what is the scene? And when I hopped onto the mic for the first time at that event was the first time that I casted Counter-Strike on LAN. And they introduced the first map ever, which was CPL Mill. So CPL Mill, I've never seen that map before, and I had to broadcast it. And when I broadcasted it, it ended up on ABC World News, where like they're like, "Oh, we have this new thing called competitive games, esports. We don't know what it is." And then suddenly it's like a clip of me literally wearing this clothing. I found it, so I'm gonna post it right now. This is me at your age, guys, at my first ever event, at 18. And then after that event, I posted it in a town hall, by the way. Sorry. And after that event, I was actually invited to go to World Cyber Games in 2003 in Daejeon, Korea. So I got flown to Korea to actually cast Counter-Strike 1.6, where I actually got to meet Guillaume Patry, which is the first probably foreigner that moved to Korea from Quebec to play StarCraft Brute War, and was one of those players that was actually able um, to do well in Korea. So I'm meeting this guy. I'm hanging out with him. He gets stopped in the street for autographs. I've never heard about this before. I was like, holy crap, man, there's a fan base and everything like that too. And that just basically has given me that drive to be like, yo, esports is the thing. Like, it's not even esports yet, but it's going to get there. We're all aspiring to get there. And this was 2003, when it was still called just competitive gaming. And then I was like, yo, esports is a thing. And then the biggest event yet, I can't think of one yet. Because honestly, when I was broadcasting a main stage or I was broadcasting in front of a crowd, besides, for example, Northern Arena that was at Fan Expo and a Northern Arena that was in Montreal, I like it that I was a mid-sized event, but I want to be on a major stage, or I want to be on a great stage with an arena filled with 12,000 people. And I think the day, if I'm able to make it, you'll probably see I probably have the cast ever, because I'm gonna be so hyped. I'm gonna be so happy. I'm gonna be so nervous. I'm probably gonna be crying at the same time too. Like, to be able to
God,
be on stage, to be able to see all that stuff. Like, I saw it from a spectator's perspective when Cloud9 won the CS:GO major in Atlanta, and I was like, man, I wish I was there, like casting the finals or on stage, and like I had shivers, and I was like, yo, it's still a goal to be on the stage again.
I'm
So
I'm
ask me that
so
question again, hopefully in a year.
yeah. Okay. Everything you got your pooks on. I was like, because we're the same era,
Yes.
my children. So
I,
we
I
I
was
was
a
like,
poser.
yes,
Was a
pooks.
skater boy, man.
Yes. I like everything, the hair, the monitor. Like, it brings me back to my LAN party in the laundromat days where we would
Hell
meet at this laundromat, had the LAN set up, but we played Duke Nukem.
yeah. Sure.
Just for the real. Oh, I'm so glad you shared that. Oh my goodness.
So I was your age, guys, doing my first ever event with in Texas, and everybody were bringing their own monitors and stuff like that too. That shit weighed like 50
Oh
pounds.
my god.
It was so heavy. We had to be two people to carry that stuff.
And it
Uh,
had like the tube lighting in it. So like if they broke
so
open
very
it,
cheap.
everywhere. Everywhere. Oh, this one's interesting. I've never even gotten to ask you this one. I'm super
Okay.
excited. If you weren't a caster, what would your ideal esports job be?
Wow. Yeah. So for me, I was let go from so as my career job for 8 years, I used to work for Rothmans Benson and Hedges / Philip Morris Canada, which was a tobacco company. Don't start smoking, guys. And then after Philip Morris, I worked for Juul for a year, and then Juul had restructurations where unfortunately I was let go because they're going through a bunch of lawsuits right now.
Hmm.
But then during that period of time where I had like a month or two before Valorant came out, I've actually sat down and I tried to build a business case as to where is esports now to what I've known about it when I was like really serious about it in 2003, 2005, and how do I make it so that esports could be accepted on the main screen on television, and that the person that's going to watch Hockey Night in Canada is also going to enjoy Esports Night in Canada, for example. And how do we bridge that gap? So I think in terms of sponsorship sales or business sales, so that mainstream media and esports media could kind of like bridge together and have an understanding of how they each work. I would love to find something like that. And that's probably a job that we have to create for ourselves in order to attain that for now. But if it was something that was going to be a job that currently exists, I think I would love to be the person that's going to help in terms of a project manager for events. So being the people liaison for the players, the GMs, as well as the TO and the production, so that everybody's reaching to their right deadlines, their right timelines to deliver a great broadcast in a great tournament. It's a lot of
Yes.
time management, a lot of
Showrunner.
yeah, exactly. A showrunner and the person that's also going to be approaching the teams to be like, hey, I'd love to invite you to do this event. Give them all the lowdown and stuff like that too. I think in terms of project management in that sense is something that was really fun to do actually when I did it for Pulse Invitational and Pulse Series 2 months ago, and something I would love to continue on if I can't continue in front of the camera. So there's still some way I want to work behind the camera, behind the scenes to continue to push esports.
You're brave. Talk to the players. I have just been blown up publicly on Twitter being like, "Hey, you want to do this thing with my org?" Like just like and then all their fans come after you too.
Oh
They're
yeah,
like, "What were you thinking?
talk
How
about skin.
dare you?"
That thick skin in this game.
Right?
Unfortunate. Yeah.
It was a good event. You showed up, you were there. We had fun. Playgrounds, that was good.
Oh, that was super fun. That was super fun. Yo, the after party after that too. We won't talk about it, but
There's no after party that happened. That is Jacqueline Manor before the major esport days. We
uh,
have are there any vocal lingual drills that you do prior to a live broadcast?
um, I don't actually. I think
Wow.
yeah, yeah. Funny enough, and I was thinking of saying like the joke like Anchorman, and always say like the Human Torch was denied a bank loan, and I think it all depends like what is my actual role for the event too. So if I was, for example, a host, there's a lot of stress for me. I'm one of those people that although I look very comfortable in front of a camera, as soon as a broadcast is done, and it's the same thing when I used to work in sales for Philip Morris. I was also a sales trainer, so I was training people, doing presentations in the front to build their selling skills and listening skills. So as soon as I'm done presenting, as soon as I'm done casting, I will probably have the sweatiest back. Nobody wants to give me a hug after a broadcast because it's so freaking wet back there. So
Yes.
so yeah, and the reason why I say that is because now taking a job as a desk host, you're the one that's like introing the segment, introing back from break, tossing the great questions to the analyst desk so that they could actually have a great conversation, listening to them so they could actually prepare on to the next question. So when it comes down to that, I actually spend like probably a good 20 minutes before I have to be live, be in the backstage, pacing back and forth to repeat how I could have the best intro possible. And then as soon as we go live, I screw up the first 5 words, laugh, and then I just go. I think I always need a fuck up before I go, which sucks. But that's where I am right now in my hosting capabilities. So I'm still learning in that sense. But if not, if you're gonna be like the person that's gonna be a play-by-play or a color commentator, and you're gonna be at the desk, it's a lot easier to prepare for those, in my opinion, because the desk host is already going to be switching over to be like, oh, so now we got to welcome Vansilli and Jackie O'Manor. Guys, how's it going today? All you got to do is just answer questions. So it's a lot easier in that sense. But I think instead of doing like the Human Torch was not a bank loan, I actually do some open and closed mouth just to like loosen up my jawline, so that when it comes down to really needing to articulate when I'm broadcasting, then it does help me a lot. Actually, something that I've done differently in front of the camera this year with Valorant than I used to in the past. Before I used to do always just talk, and and even when I stop talking, I'm looking at the camera, I look angry as. I mean, look at that picture. That's exactly what I look like when I'm not actually on talking. So I think I'm smiling, but I look like this face. So I look angry. So what I'm trying to do now is to actually do a little bit more expression when I'm talking. So my eyes are actually trying to not become Asian and a little bit more round.
Whoa. Gotta be careful. We're in a college here. We're accepting of all types.
That's true. My bad, guys. But
all people.
Just to articulate when I'm actually trying to do more facial expressions, when I'm actually talking, you could see I'm smiling when I'm talking too. So that helps me a little bit in terms of being more likable on camera with a personality as well when I'm talking. And just talking like that and moving a little bit more. I know it sounds a little bit exaggerated for the beginning, but it doesn't look so bad when you're actually looking back at it on camera. And just having that articulate way of talking and moving your mouth a little bit more than just having a regular conversation face to face like this, then it actually helps you articulate better when you're actually doing a broadcast itself in game.
I love that. I've been doing it wrong. You got like confidence. I'm like in the back, like 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. You know.
Well, I think one of the biggest things to in front of in being in front of the camera and also being a public person and a public figure actually in the scene is to be very confident too, right? Confident but humble. Confident, no ego, right? There's a difference.
I love that. Confidence, no ego. All right, well, we are getting to 9:30, so I'm gonna let you go, but I have to give you like the biggest thank you ever so much for coming out, spending this time with my kids. And I hope you don't mind. We also recorded the footage, so it will live in our YouTube with your consent.
100%. I have no issues about that. Thank you so much for having me. Just a joke before, guys. All inclusion. But also thank you for taking the time. Like Jackie said, it was half an hour. We took an hour. It's in the middle of your midterms. So I'm very humbled to be able to talk in front of you guys, and hopefully I was able to help as well. And if there's any questions that I might have missed that Jackie could actually forward to me to write as an email, I don't mind writing them back as an email and sending it back to you, Jackie, so she can provide it back to you as well. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Good luck in your midterms. Kick ass, kill it. And hopefully we'll see you guys in a few years on the main stage as well as a caster.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Have a good night, Jack.
For coming.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye, guys. Peace.